Genesis chapter 3. Yes, I do not want to be impeached. Now the serpent was more crafty than any other wild animal God had made. He said to the woman, did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? I mean, that's an absurdity, complete absurdity, considering these guys were not carnivores, neither were they omnivores. These guys were herbivores. So, I mean, he asks a ridiculous question. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree? So what is he doing at this point? He's making God sound unreasonable. Yeah? He's really just making God sound unreasonable. I mean, what am I supposed to feed on? So what happens when someone makes somebody you care about sound unreasonable? You defend them. You automatically go on the defense. You automatically look for something to say, hapana, hakusema hivyo. So the woman said, we may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say, you must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it or you will die. Now, did God say that? No, he did not. God just said, do not eat. He never said, do not touch. So you're already coming from a point of, I am protecting God, but I'm even going to overprotect him now. That alisema uziguze. Of course, two things may have happened. Adam may have told him something exaggerated, or the more reasonable one would be, he wasn't really sure of what God said. Or you're put on the defense and you decide, I am going to over-defend. Yes? And then the serpent goes on, you will not certainly die. So he plants doubt in whom? What God said. So you're already growing up with, this didn't happen. Adam wasn't created yesterday and the serpent came in the next day. This is years. Sometimes we read Genesis chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4 as if it's today, tomorrow, the next day, and then kaput. These are years after God has walked with them. Many, many years. So you will not certainly die. So he's putting doubt in someone you already know his character, but now he's putting doubt in pengine kuna kitu ingine. Maybe there is something more that is being withheld from you. For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God. So he has already shown you at this point there is something better. This is not enough. You can be like whom? You can be like God. And how will you be like God? Knowing good and evil. So he has basically used the exact same words that God used. Do not do this because this will happen. But now he's twisted it to be, this means something is being withheld from you. Yeah? And so the stage is set for what now we have viewed God after. So of course they go on and eat the fruit, their eyes are opened, and death comes into the world. And that sets the stage for basically everything that has followed after. And a bit of how we view God can be seen starting from this story. Does not know what is best for us. So it's either I think God is withholding this job from me because he does not know what is good for me. Alternatively, God is withholding this job from me, yet I know what is best for me. And then most of us have viewed God like that. Most of the times. I included. I being in the center of that whole story. So Adam and Eve basically fell into the trap of thinking God is withholding something better from them. Yet they had walked with him for, well, whatever amount of time that has happened. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a 3-year-old. So assume you have Amani. And Amani, you keep telling Amani the same thing. Hii ni moto, usiguze. Yeah? But Amani likes playing in the kitchen. So Amani is always playing in the kitchen. And he's always looking at this thing you're being told, do not touch. It's very nice. It's yellow and blue and warm in a cold day. It makes us very good food. If I want food, Mami just goes and warms with his thing, I'm told, usiguze. And every other time, you're telling them, do not touch, you will get burnt. One, they have no idea what getting burnt means. They do not know. And you cannot explain it to them. You can't tell them what is getting burnt. Can you? You can't. You can't explain what is getting burnt to a 3-year-old. Yeah. Ouch, ouch, yeah. So all you can tell them is, do not touch, you will get burnt. Same kind of thing. Do not eat, you will die. Would God have explained what is die to someone who does not know what is die? They have no idea. And even after they ate, he really never told them what will happen onwards. Can you imagine if Adam was told, now because you have done, and he's shown down the road to your time, to your specific self who is suffering, and every other person in between, what would have happened? Just think about it. So, a few questions usually arise, and these questions usually sort of form the basis of how we view God in that whole story. Okay, I ask a few questions. You guys may not have them. So why create 2 trees in the first place? Have you asked yourself that? No. I mean, why create the tree of life and the tree of the one that made people fall? He would just have not made that tree, then things would have been okay. Yeah. Okay, there were many trees, yes. Thank you for that clarification. But, okay, let me focus on this one, then we'll talk about the other one. So why create this particular one? And then put it in the middle so that you do not miss it. Angeificha huko katikati or somewhere on the side, yes? Why was God creating Adam and Eve in the first place? Relationship. Somebody said relationship. That was why God was creating Adam and Eve. So if I am creating people for a relationship, yet they have no choice but to choose me, what would we call that? dictatorship. Yes? It's not a relationship. There is no choice. It's a dictatorship. It is. It's a full, you have no choice. Yet, I have given you the illusion of choice. So he did create them and give them a choice. In fact, they chose him for, well, I do not know how long. Maybe we'll ask when we get there. Yet have you noted this tree of the knowledge of good and evil is not mentioned at the end in the New Jerusalem? So let's put up Revelation 22:2. For God knows, sijafungua yangu. So soma sambo. Oh, it's not the one. Oh, sorry. Okay. Revelation 22:2. So let me just read it. Or someone has a mic. Okay. Though the middle of the street, also on either side of the river, the tree of life with its 12 kinds of fruit yielding its fruit each month. The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. So the tree of life comes up again at the end of time, yes? Or at the end of whatever we consider time. But what's different at this time? Uliza maswali, eh? What's different? If you just think about it. At this time, you have already made a choice. You've already made a choice. At this time, the tree of life is there, but the choice was already given to you, and you have already made it. So choice is still there, through and through. The second question. So then, think, why would a good God not allow people to eat from the tree of life and live forever? Why? See, they were both there. So if you read Genesis 3 from 21, just do that so that Genesis 3 from verse 21. The Lord made so the Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he had taken. After he drove them out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life. So he wasn't even kicking them out of Eden because they had done all those things. He was kicking them out of Eden so that they don't do what? Eat from the tree of life. So then, honestly speaking, why would a good God who wants us to live in a very nice place kicks these guys out so that they don't eat from the tree of life, which would then have, they would have lived forever. See, wangeishi milele, it's the tree of life. So why? We want to discuss for a minute. We have time. Let's discuss for a minute. Let's hear your opinions. That's a good one. Anybody else? Siki? Okay, no. Sokoro? Why would a good God not allow Adam and Eve to eat from the tree of life? Phil? Yes. If you ate from the tree of good and evil, so you shall surely die. And we can see him driving them out so that they do not eat from the tree of life. They had already eaten from the tree of good and evil. They had not eaten. It says, after he drove them out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword, flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life. He was protecting the tree of life. The one in the middle. Uh-huh. But living. They had made their choice, yeah? I started off by saying this is God giving a story. And so we started off by saying Moses goes up the mountain, and I do not remember where he went. But Moses was not there in Genesis all the way to when he gave the commandments. So this is God giving a story of what happened through and through. So from a good father's perspective, why would you deny something to someone? Mostly out of love. So you won't give your 10-year-old a vehicle to go to the highway alone and they've never driven. Yes? So they had already eaten the fruit. So they were essentially dead. The earth had already fallen. Those ones are set. It has already happened. It won't be reversed. So it's no longer a perfect creation. They are no longer perfect people. So disease will come in. The earth will not produce as it was supposed to. You will toil. There will be pains. There will be everything you have seen yourself. So what if, from a good father's perspective, this was an act of love? So then, let me put it this way, now that I love stories. You walk into what? A factory. Someone is a worker in a factory. So let's say person X is a worker in a factory. And person X decides to drink a bottle labeled acid. So he drinks that bottle labeled acid. So as per consequence, he ends up with a corroded, what is it called? A corroded esophagus. Yes, esophagus. A corroded esophagus. So a corroded food pipe, yes? And he's having trouble swallowing. He's having trouble. He's having pain when swallowing. And the manager, who's a nice guy, decides, I will lock this room and I will not let this guy come in again. But this guy remembers something. Inside that store was another bottle labeled base. And in his chemistry knowledge, he knows acid neutralizes base. So what's the plan that he comes up with? I'll drink the base, sindio? But what would happen if he drank the base? More corrosion. In fact, it's worse than the acid. Yes, because it continually burns and burns and burns. It's worse. You'd rather take an acid. If you're going to text. So now he comes back in and he finds the place locked. And he starts wondering, what is wrong with his manager? Why would this manager not allow me to go in and take the base that is supposed to fix my throat? So he goes out and tells the colleagues, man, we have a terrible manager. I read in a science journal that acid neutralizes base. So this guy has decided I am not going to get healed. In fact, he must be the worst person in the world. What kind? And then the manager is like, Apana, I love you a lot. I will not let that happen to you, Apana. So 2% of the guys understand that taking acid and base is a bad idea. But then the other 98% ends up looking at this manager and wondering, so why would you have perpetuated this idea of you being a very good manager if this is how you treated our colleagues? Okay? Misunderstood, yes? So then sit down and think about something. Think about someone you know. Someone born with a disability. Whatever person you know, cannot walk, cannot talk, cannot see, cannot do anything for themselves. Someone who's already sick and suffering for some time with no cure. Now think about that person living like that forever. Whatever happened was never going to be changed. Think about some evil guys, Genghis Khan or Hitler, and then that guy is just living forever. He cannot die. He cannot live. Or just think about our own lives and our own sufferings and our own issues. And we just live like this forever, confined in this body. Now what good a God would that be, who is then preparing a place for us that is perfect, and yet leave us here in this state? So then I ask you again, would a good God let those people eat from that tree? My third and final question. So, Adam and Eve are driven out of the Garden of Eden, yes? And we tend to think that God is now very angry with these people, and he has driven them out, and the fact that he has driven them out means he has cut off his love from them. Hawapendi anymore, hawaongeleshi, he's not communing with them, he's doing nothing. In fact, these are terrible people. Tutaonana wakati ya 10 commandments. How many have thought about it that way? Mimi nimefikiri. Unaona vile nakuwa na maswali mingi. So we understand now why Adam and Eve had to leave the garden, yes? Genesis 4 is the account of Cain and Abel, I think. I do not want to be impeached. Let me just read the right things. It is the account of Cain and Abel. Now, Let me start from where? Verse 4. And Abel also brought an offering. Now, okay. Now Abel kept flock and Cain worked on the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. And Abel also brought an offering, fat portions, from some of the firstborn of his flock. Somebody saw you imeandikwa firstborn. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering. But on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry and his face was downcast. Who told these guys to offer sacrifices? Huh? Yes. No. How many times was it done? Yes. Who told them? How did they know to offer firstborn of his flock? When did we see Adam and Eve offering sacrifices? It's a simple question. Who told them? Then, why would Cain be angry that God did not look favorably on his offering? And then number 3, what does it mean to look favorably on your offering? How? How did he look favorably? Did God speak to these guys kindani ndani? Did they have the Holy Spirit so that he can speak to them huko ndani ndani? No. So 3 things then arise here. Or 3 things you have to answer for yourself. Either there was a physical manifestation of him amenifurahisha na hii haijanifurahisha. True. Either there was an audible voice ya kuambia hii yako ni mzuri, hii yako ni mbaya. 3, somebody must have told them, this is how you offer sacrifices. That somebody must be a somebody who understands why you offer sacrifices after you have fallen. It was not before the fall. It was after the fall. Again, remember, this is a story being told to Moses by God. Okay? Swali yangu ya 3 ilikuwa gani? Nimesahau. But you have to answer those questions for yourself. And then, chini yake tu, sometimes we read things tunazipita tu. Then the Lord said to Cain. How did he say to Cain? Then the Lord said to Cain. How did he say it? The way we are talking. But the way we are talking. So it is a sound. Yes? If it is the Lord said to Cain, and Cain is hearing, and Cain is understanding that it is the Lord who's speaking to him, what would that imply? The Lord has spoken to him severally before. I mean, how do I just wake up and say, then Siki akaniambia? I do not know Siki's voice. Unless I see Siki and ananiambia, mimi naitwa Siki, we have been together for a while for me to understand this is Siki speaking. And then just look at what he said. Why are you angry? Now, of what concern is it to Siki if I am angry, if we have no relationship? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do do not do what is right. Sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must not rule over it. But you must rule over it. So look at the tone of this speech. Is this a tone of nimekasirika na wewe? Is it? This is a tone of love. This is a tone of someone correcting their kid. This is a tone of mtoto wako ameanguka shule, mwambie si ukisoma utapita, lakini usiposoma si utaendelea kuanguka. Yes? Lakini chunga sana, ukianguka si maisha itakuwa ngumu. So when you do what is right, will it not be accepted? What does that imply? He already told them how to do what is right. It's just that Cain did not do it. Sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Yeah? Haya, tuendelee. Now, for those of us who are brought up by mothers and fathers who are a bit wamefinya kidogo, si notikona. Imagine yourself taking some sugar from home. Unakimbia na hapo nje, unajificha mahali, unakula skari. Then in the middle of it, your mother calls you. Kawe, what do you do? Wipe it out quickly. No, unakimbia kwenye. Yes, hide the evidence, yes? Hide the evidence. Hide the evidence. Most of the times kama mamako anakuita ashakuona. Yeah, ashakuona, si ndio? Let's go. Let's read verse 9. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain says, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" How did his blood cry out? Mwaka ka scenario nimepeana. Mamako ashakuona ukiua nani pale. Crying out. It could also have meant his spirit is crying out. A few things get lost in translation. Yeah. I do not know, he replied. Am I my brother's keeper? The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." Now, let me ask you guys another question. There has been no presidents. Nobody has killed before. This is the first person who has killed someone. It's not even hata hawajui kuua ni nini. Then think about how he answers God. Think about how you answered your mother. And think about how this guy answers God. And okay, think about it this way. You are eating that sugar, then a voice from heaven speaks to you. Siki, what are you doing? You would die. You would die. But how does this guy answer? Kwani ni mimi naekanga bradhangu unaniambia nini? Exactly. You see what you said? Walikuwa wamezoeana. Ni mazoeano. These guys were so used to having God around. It's just like speaking to another person. For familiarity breeds. Yeah. You get my... So now, if you go to verse 13, so God punishes him and tells him, now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from the hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer of the earth. But look at 13. Cain said to God, my punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. So, how do you hide from someone's presence if you are never in it? How do you get out of something you are never in? Is that a possibility? How can you get out of a house if you are not in that house? I will be a restless wanderer from the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. But the Lord said to him, now look at the same God who's... Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over. So what is God propagating? Mercy. To whom? To the guy who just killed his brother. To the first murderer in the world. So again, I ask the question I started with. How do we view God? What kind of God is this? Unfair. We view God as unfair. Quite unfair, most of the time. But what kind of God is being portrayed in the questions that we do not ask? In the questions that we do not dare to ask? It could be our fault. I notice I have picked a text that I would be expected to teach differently. But I have picked that text to show what is different of God. Then we track the same thing all the way downwards. So sin entered into the world by that one act in Genesis 2 or 3. And from there on, from when Moses read out this thing, we have had this constant feeling of do what is right or God will get you. God will get you. That's how we view him. God will get you. Yet, if we look beyond it, God has dealt with us in love from the very start. His heart for us has been love. So this is what it means when we say God is love. And if we were to set aside our biases, we would start seeing that in our own lives. None of us would give up their own child to die for their own mtoto mwingine. None of us then would go further to give that same child to die for your sisters and brothers. None of us then would give our own children to die for the country or the continent. But he gave his child to die for the universe. Some of us were not even born. Some of us, he knew what we would become. And he did that from the foundations of the earth. He already made a way to restore what Adam and Eve lost, even before they lost it. At the fall, he already made a way in 3:15 to pay for whatever they had lost at a very heavy cost. More than not even putting that tree there that we keep asking about. And he did that from a point of love. What did he do? He restored that choice. That's all he did. He restored that choice of how we are going to spend an eternity. The choice was there at the beginning, and he restored it. And if you listen to Jesus, he would say then that I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. And he did not only make a way to restore eternity, to restore the choice, he made a way to restore the eternity he had envisioned in those 3 chapters in Eden. So then he goes ahead and tells us, I have prepared a place for you. If it were not so, I would have told you. So he's recounting the exact same things he did in 1, 2, 3, but at a great cost. And he made that eternity to a place where sin cannot enter this time round, where that tree is not there, but the tree of life is there. And then he made a way to continually have a relationship with us. And that relationship, he made sure it was not based on our goodness or anything we do. He made sure it was based on a sacrifice of his own son. So he made sure that the same way sin entered into the world by one man's disobedience is the same way that salvation came in, through one man's obedience, so that nobody can boast. So then I ask you this final question. How have you viewed God? Is he the God who's coming to get you because you didn't pay your tithe? Is he the God who is placing sickness on you because you didn't pray 10 times a day? Is he the God who... What have you thought about him? And as I end, how should I title my sermon? I'm inviting a fear as I go. How should I title my sermon? Answers? Questions? Question. Baki question. So then I ask this last question. Are we serving a God who's a father? Or are we serving the Godfather? Because most of us have seen God as a Godfather. that Italian mafia who sits somewhere and is just waiting to get us. So I submit it to you today. God is a father. He is not the Godfather.